thank you for everyone coming. I really appreciate it. And thank you for our foundation to give us a chance to host such an event. I'm really overwhelmed by how many people register for this event. And this is Seattle Tech Week. It's definitely a big week. And also I'm really amazed by how many female founders I got, both on the stage and in the crowd. So a little bit background about myself and why we are here today. So I'm a second-time founder. I had one exit, and before this, I was at Facebook AI research doing NLP research as an AI engineer. So for this venture, I'm doing social media marketing, which is empowered by AI agent. So it's an agentic framework. And then during my journey here, I have so many amazing female founders. Some of them use their savings being solo founder for several years. And at the same time, they are mom of 2 or mom of 4 even. Nothing can be harder than this. So that's the motivation for me to build such a community. In such a way, we can support each other. So I created a website called seattlefemalefounders.org. Please subscribe it. So we also host regular quarterly happy hours sponsored by JP Morgan and the AI tool. That's one of the reasons why I went to AI tool. So, but if you subscribe the website, you will receive email, and I will make sure next time I put the address on the header, so you won't miss it. And also, I'm trying to feature female founders on the website. So every time before events or after events, we got like more than 1,000 visits on the website. So at least it can help you increase your visibility. And maybe we can drive some traffic to your business. So that's the motivation of this community. That's why I'm trying to organize as many female founder events as possible to give each other support. If not business side, at least it's emotional support. So let's come back to the stage. Do you want to do a quick intro about like who you are, what you are building? Priyanka, you want to start first?
Hey everybody, thank you for making this happen. I'm Priyanka Kulkarni. I'm the founder and CEO of KCM. KCM is one of the fastest business immigration solutions so that founders and employers can get best talent. This company was started with my own personal struggles with immigration. Before this, I was the principal science manager at Microsoft, worked with OpenAI to release enterprise ChatGPT, and spent all my career in AI. And so, crazy immigration struggles, and here we are transforming this whole space. I'm excited to be here and share my journey with everybody.
Working? Hello? Okay. Hi everyone, I'm Maria Constantine. I'm with Cascade AI. We're an agentic AI company for employee support that's purpose-built for HR and benefits teams. We offer 3 different types of agents for HR teams, ranging from agents that help with HR and benefit support inquiries, all the way to helping employees understand the details of their employment contracts and of the total reward packages put in place by employers, inclusive of insurance, life insurance, promotion bonuses, all the corporate resources available out there, as well as help organizations drive operational efficiencies, all the way from onboarding to offboarding and to helping employees from hire to retire. My background is in building large-scale distributed systems powered by AI and ML. Before starting Cascade, I worked at Microsoft in the Azure Compute AI team. So somewhat similar background. I've also been through the immigration journey, so I can give kudos for that. I'm very passionate about building successful businesses and efficient enterprises. During my time at Microsoft, the focus of the work I was doing was on building AI systems for cloud efficiency. I started Cascade exactly as the industry was shifting from traditional deep learning into generative AI, and chose this department because it gave us an opportunity to bring agents in the hands of every single employee at the company. I'm excited for the conversation today. Thanks for having me.
Sure.
Hello. Hello everyone, I'm Susanna. Thank you for having me here. I'm the founder of MeBoss. We are job matching platforms. We match job seekers and hiring manager directly through instant chat. I always say that it's like a Bumble or Tinder finding a job. So if you're familiar with those platforms, that's who we are in the job market. So I always feel like, life 24 hours a day and the 12 hour with your partner, the other 12 hour with your teammates. It's important that you know them better before you work together. So I'm like, why not we just chatting first? Why there's resumes, apply, waiting. I just want to see you, talk with you first. Then I create these platforms, wants to get human first and make the hiring easier. Right now we are free, so we are trying to help all the founders to find their especially early partners, which I think is the most important. Always at the company always have a risk. Who creating the risk? It's the human. So we need to get right human, reduce the risk for the startup companies. And myself, I was a second-time entrepreneur as well. My first company, I sold it, which is become the largest social media platform across US and China, targeting all the Chinese overseas students. So I was a founder the first time. I'm struggling on hiring, finding teammates, especially we hire journalists all over the world. And I'm like, you know what, I know the struggle it is. Let me do something can help these communities. And here we are, MeBoss. I just moved to Seattle with the team. Early this year, we are in Bellevue. Hopefully to see all of you guys around, many times in Seattle. Thank you for having me.
Sure.
Test.
Yeah.
Kind of? Okay. Hey, my name is Anya Smith, and I'm the founder of Selfful. We are a new kind of tech for coaches. And my background is I'm really impressed by this panel here. And I'm a first-time founder who, for the longest time, thought I wasn't good enough to be a founder and had the sense of like I used to be curing cancer or be an AI researcher or something like that to do something by myself. And then there was a point in life where I had no excuses to not try. So about a year ago, I started a company, and I found that all the steps in my life were actually preparing me to be the founder for this company. I found that my own sense of success wasn't working for me back in the day, and so I had to find what's the inner state of success, and I found that coaching helped me find what success actually works for me. I'm a mom of 3 boys, and I think that's really important that you don't show up when life is perfect or don't create when life is perfect. You create around life, and life shapes who you are as a founder and experience. So really grateful to be here around all the audience to learn from other founders and to share my experience. Putting something to life, the real. So don't shy away from any questions. I'll be happy to answer them. First year running, we just fundraised, building our second product and launching it on Thursday. So happy to share all my insights. Grateful to be here.
Thank you.
Hi. Hello everyone, my name is Maggie. I came down from Vancouver this morning, so I'm here to make this event very international. I said I have been sitting around the table, so more about corporate and investment. I used to work in last century. I used to work as an investment banker in Morgan Stanley's subsidiary. I helped corporate to do IPOs. That manage public companies as an executive, and later on privatization, merger acquisitions, and starting kind of 15 years ago as an investor running venture capital, and also manage startup companies as board member, especially as the audit committee chair, and also try to find next round of investment and merger acquisitions. And a few years ago, I started my own startup. The reason I started is that at the time, we want to build something for healthy aging. But we searched all the market, we couldn't find anything. And it turned out that all the startup founders, you are too young. You're too young to think about we need a AI product to help people to have healthy aging. But actually, aging is not only for seniors. Aging started when you're middle-aged because you already have something that is built up. If you keep yourself in the right lifestyle, you don't have to end up a miserable aging age. You'll be always as active, energetic as young people. So that's why I started this startup to serve people that might be older than me. And we already have a product, and we call it the world first virtual prevention center. And we build it with the game engine. It looks like a game. It looks like a virtual experience because we want the virtual technology solution can bring the real health to this generation. I think it will be perfect for all your senior family members, so that you don't have the frustration of always telling them to do the right thing. Our product will help you to guide them through the right lifestyle.
Love that.
Hi there. Yes. Hi. Sorry I'm a minute late. This is like war stories from the founder world. But I am Arna Ionescu-Stoll from Waveley Diagnostics. We are building a virtual medicine cabinet of AI diagnostic apps for parents. So earlier this year, we launched our first app, which is for ear infection. So you use your phone, you can detect if there's a potential ear infection just by playing chirps in the ear from your phone. And that way you know if you need to take them into the doctor, because 71% of the time when you bundle up your sick and cranky kid and take him to the doctor because you think they have an ear infection, they don't. Last Tuesday, we announced the second app that we're going to be launching later this year. So we did a survey of parents, and the thing that bubbled up as parents worrying about after ear infections was head bumps. So the app that we're going to be launching is in partnership with another Seattle startup, Aperture. It can detect concussions just by using your phone to shine light in the eye, and then looking at, we have a doctor then that will analyze the dilation curve, and then there'll be an AI applied to that later. So that's what we're doing, and the idea is to keep building and adding more AI diagnostics to help parents figure out what's going on with their kids that should come with a manual but don't.
Thank you. Actually, I'm so overwhelmed by first-time founder, second-time founders, healthcare, immigrants, and also international, and also like VC turned founder. I don't know if it's a good decision to come to the other side of the table.
It is.
Okay,
You will see people are frustrated with VC.
Yeah, actually, we do have raising questions later. So, to be very honest, I think founding a company has been the hardest thing I have done, way harder than working at Facebook research. So what was your most difficult time, and then have you really like seriously thought about quitting? And then it's like the real founding journey is harder than what you expected, or is like the same level? One star.
I guess I've been put on the spot. I guess my hardest moment was being late for this panel. But in honesty, it is much harder than I thought it was going to be. And I think what I wasn't prepared for was the loneliness. So I think when you're part of when you've got peers in leadership, either other execs, or at management, whatever level you're at, you have people to commiserate with, you have people to share your successes, you have people to share your challenges. When you're the founder or the CEO, it's all on your shoulders, and you share your successes, but you really internalize a lot of the failures to protect the team and keep them positive. So I think the big thing I wasn't prepared for in the challenge was that it's a really lonely job.
You have us. You have this community.
And that's the only reason I'm still around, is the community.
Okay, thank you.
I think the highs are so high and the lows are so low. Oh boy. I definitely knew getting into this being a founder is not an easy journey. Being a solo female founder, not at all. However, I think what I did not prepare for was the emotional strain on like consistently switching between being that vibrant, big picture, big vision, and then firefighting every minute, every hour, and switching the context, and like waiting at the end of the day and reflecting like, what was my day about? But I also feel like the opposite part was very interesting. We're really in the business of freedom. We are helping people get visas. Every approval, I get on a call, I tell someone, founders, you've got your visa. There is like endless tears for like 20 minutes. And you take that in, and this is what you're working for every day. And so I wasn't prepared for that either. Like I knew I was building a company. I knew I was building for something that was very meaningful. But how meaningful? Like, it comes down to me every day, every minute, every approval that comes through. So I don't think you can ever be prepared for either of those two things.
Yeah, I got you. I had a really long waiting time for my green card as well, so I totally understand how hard it was. Thank you for sharing.
Perhaps I can start by sharing some of the differences I see between being a founder and working in a big tech company, which are the two experiences I've had. Of course, there are big differences in terms of like the shipping velocity. What we ship in like 1 sprint, 2 sprints in a startup, is the equivalent of what you'd ship maybe in like a semester or a quarter of working in a big tech company. Things just happen a lot faster when there's customer urgency. I remember a story from a friend who sold his company and then joined a big company after that. And he was telling me he was receiving emails at 11 p.m. from customers and he was responding on the spot immediately after acquisition. And his peers were telling him, you don't have to try so hard, it's okay. You don't need to respond to emails at 11 p.m. And they said, but the customer, it's an urgency with the organization. So that's a difference in the urgency that startups feel versus large companies. I think the way you become successful is also very different, right? Like when you're in a big company, it can be tech, it can be finance, pharma, consulting. You're already you're competing on pretty well-defined problems against 1-2% of people, and you need to impress peers who are more senior than you. So that's a very it's a very particular type of problems to solve that you need to be successful and we train for that and we become very good at that, and then when you're comfortable with it and you wanna change course and start a business, if you study into non-tech, non-traditional businesses, you suddenly have to impress non-technical customers, right? And to be successful at very abstract, open-ended problems, not well-defined problems by your organization. You're the one who actually defines the problems that you're going to solve. So those are very different kinds of motion. In terms of being prepared, maybe I can share a bit about the founder journey and what made me want to start Cascade, and how I view this different from other companies. I started Cascade during the pandemic. I sometimes joke that it was my pandemic project when we were all stuck indoors with our thoughts, and I was thinking, what do I want to do for the remaining of my career? And during the pandemic, it was an opportunity to check in with many friends with whom I hadn't spoken in a while. I was just checking on them, hey, are you healthy? How are you doing? We haven't caught up in a while. And I saw this trend with friends who were working in big tech companies that maybe this is something about me also being a millennial and specific to my generation. Once every few years, people are switching their jobs and always looking for the next perfect opportunity. So there's some restlessness there, I think specific to my age. But many of the friends who are working in big tech, I saw that whenever they would start a chapter, they'd be very, very excited about that chapter and about the job and about the project, and somehow their excitement would go like this over time. And it didn't have to do with the job, the project, the work in particular. It had to do with maybe a manager they didn't like or something annoying at work, some day-to-day dynamics that over time made them less excited about their jobs. And I kept seeing this pattern over and over again. I also had a couple of friends who started companies, and I knew how difficult it had been for them in the early days. But for those that made it, the curve was the other way around. So maybe I'm a technical founder, so I think in terms of charts. For a chance of building that kind of opportunity, I really wanted to pursue something like that, and that's what made the startup founder journey so meaningful, and to create that kind of opportunity for my team now as well. So yeah, I'm really enjoying the founder journey for all the highs and the lows, and sometimes they all happen in the same day as well. But it's an incredible one. So yeah, that's a very question.
Thank you for your story.
So I always want to think about quitting for sure, and I never worked in a big corporations. So my first startup I started while I was still at school actually. So I never had a chance working in a big corp. but I find out myself is more like risk takers. So maybe I'm not really good employee, I guess, for the big corp. So I'm consistent to do my own projects, start companies. The one thing I learned very hard for me to facing about criticize. So I born in a kind of good families. My parents like always like saying, encourage me, saying good thing about me. Everyone likes you. But when I started my own business, people start judging. And then you have customers, you have clients, they're gonna make comments on you, they're gonna question about you, your team gonna question about you as well. Are we on the right directions? Are you sure this is gonna working? Should we continue that? Can we change the product? I've been questioned for every day, a lot of questions like that. So I think the hardest part for me is accepting the criticize and also insist on what I believe. That's the hardest part. I think a lot of founders facing that problem, especially for female founders, you're more like emotional type of person, I would say that, compared to the men, they're more realistic, I guess. So I learned through past like 10 years of my startup company journey that I believe what I'm building, and if I cannot convince myself, convince my teams, I don't think I can sell to my customers. So that's what I practice every day, to accepting people's suggestions and then to grow myself stronger. So I always tell my team, like, just tell me what's the problem it is. I don't need to hear about the good part. And that help each other to grow. Yeah. And I know it's hard, but it always helped me to become like more the resilience. Yeah, improves a lot.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
For me, I think it's good that you don't know what's going to happen. The mic is not. It's not on. Test. Okay, there we go. The testing. I think it's good that you don't know what's going to happen. I think it's actually, you have to be a little bit delusional and just start where you are. Because if you go back and look at it, like, would I have gone through all of this to get here? And at this time, you're like, yes. But if at the beginning you saw all the path in front of you, you're like, no, like, am I delusional to that point? I'm going to share a couple of opinions, but to me, the startup has been like a personal, spiritual journey. And I mentioned that to Pierre, who's an incredible coach. But it's a level of like, down at the end of the day, you're going to be by yourself and asking yourself, am I good enough for this? At the end of the day, you're going to say, hey, do I have what it takes? At the end of the day, you're going to have moments that you're so overwhelmed by fear because you look at your runway, because you have this thing, and you're just like it can just completely stop you. And so whatever you say, it's not about being the smartest person in the room. It's really about having an internal state of how do you keep going. And I don't necessarily have a state of like, would I give up? I'm like, how can I do my best with what I have right now? Is what you go to as a startup. It's not about like, hey, I have this 5-year plan, because it's sort of like plans that you have a kind of plan and you do your best guesstimate, but really you have to get good about doing your best with what you have. And I think it all starts with your inner foundation. That's why I care about what I care about with coaching and inner foundation, because ultimately if you get to a point like the startup isn't me, like my humanity, my worth is not tied up like what you guys think about me. It's not tied to how much like I raise. It's not tied by all of that. Like if I can come back and enjoy what I do every day, then that's a success to me. And that's what I want people to get to, is not to find themselves by their roles, their titles, but actually do something that they cultivate from the inner awareness. Like they have, I really want to be doing, I really want to be solving it, and not let fear dictate what they should and shouldn't do. But ultimately that inner awareness for me has created that foundation for being able to do things every day. For being able to lead, because it's like, okay, well, if the fear wasn't guiding me, what would I do in this situation? It also makes me think, well, if this is not about me, how can I better serve my team? What do they need for me to be a better leader? How can I better serve my clients? Because ultimately, you have to be like, sometimes like, I don't want to even open that email because I know what's going to be there, right? Like, but you do it because you know it's not about me, right? And there's also something great where you get beyond your own shit in your head and you start focusing, well, what impact can I still have? And then that creates a little sense of peace about why am I doing this, and kind of. So that's been my journey. Very maybe unpopular for people, but I think it's like being a founder is an inner journey, and you find out what's your shit, and that will stop you before anything else external will. So.
Thank you, very inspiring. Thank you for sharing.
Okay, so yeah, according to my experience, I think the startup founder is quite a privilege and also a very happy job. I don't know whether I'm lucky or unlucky. My previous work, none of it is happy because it's all very demanding. You have sleepless night. You have to hide your tears in the washroom. You have to keep smiling in front of your customer. You have to take flights when there's big store. So none of the jobs that you want to be successful will be an easy, happy, lighthearted one. And I think comparatively, to be a founder, that you have the value that you can make decisions. You can put into execution those things that you believe it will be valued. That's really a great privilege. Being employed or in other positions, you don't have that opportunity. So I think if you are mentally or very strong, I think no difficulty would defeat a founder, only except one thing. That is physically, you will have problem. That happened to me 2 years ago, you know. So I went to CES. I always blame CES because it's full of virus, you know. So after CES, I had 3 weeks of flu that I cannot get fully recovered. So after morning meeting, I turned myself into ER because I had a heart condition. So I said to the doctors, I'm just curious whether you can check me out. I don't know whether it's a flu or it's a heart condition. And they heard a heart condition, so they say, because of that history, we'll keep you in the hospital. And they gave me the full checkup. So I stayed in hospital and then ended up having a surgery. But I waited for 2 weeks before the surgery. At that time, all my meetings are in hospital, you know. My team came to the hospital to have meetings with me. And then I had a surgery, I had to plan everything for our business to grow and to move forward. So based on that, my advice to founders is that never make a startup a one-man or one-woman show. Find the right co-founders. That the most responsible thing to do is that even you're sick, even you cannot hold on those beats, you still have partners to move things forward. So teamwork is very important.
Thank you. Actually, when I thought about this question, I did expect to hear about stories that aside. For example, I had a story that when I last company, I had a customer. We do enterprise sales. I had a customer. I worked for 8 months, and then I got an email. That was the email I knew, and I really didn't want to open, which was a no. After 8 months, it's a very big customer. And then I sat in the conference room by myself for 1 hour. I just couldn't walk out because I didn't want my employee to feel how I felt. So that was really hard. But I didn't hear any story like that today. Everyone is so positive. I guess that's why you guys are still here, being founders. Okay. Yeah, since this is so positive, let's talk about something more like product oriented. So everyone here is early stage founders. So for early stage companies, the most important thing is product market fit, right? And then, do you think you found the product market fit yet? If so, like, how did you get your first several paying customers, if you have any? You want to share your story?
So we had a big pivot. So we first launched to selling to providers under the value prop of being able to offer more virtual care services to your patients, to your families. And we sold a number of providers. They were using it. We had a 100% renewal rate this year, but it just wasn't going fast enough for a startup. Just providers were slow. We had this like second order adoption issue where some providers were amazing at getting like every single family in their practice using Wavely, and other providers sucked and had like 2 people using Wavely, and we didn't really have any control over that. And so we went back to the drawing board early this year and did big of a pivot as you can do, which is go to direct to consumer. And within a month, we knew it was like night and day, and we knew that it was working. And we're getting new customers daily, and they're paying. And yes, we've had like 1 or 2 bad Amazon reviews, but we've had a lot of good Amazon reviews too. And so it was just night and day from what felt like a slog and a battle, and like it was working, but not like it wasn't greased. and this major pivot where, because like every single coach and every single advisor and everybody you talk to says, do not go direct to consumer, specifically in healthcare. And I keep trying to like come up with the rationale for why we're different, and it's a hard rationale to come up with, right? And I think fundamentally, if you look at where the emotional, like I totally could have used that reaction is, it's with parents for our product, right? It's like, it's not with providers, it's not with healthcare systems, it's with parents, right? And I think that if you think about like, I totally could have used that shampoo, or like other like, very emotional products that you buy when you see on Instagram in your feed, like this kind of has that same kind of reaction. And so I think that's why, contrary to what every single advisor has told us, I mean, we launched B2B last year because my entire board told me to launch B2B and like forget D2C, right? I think I think we have a very different emotional profile to our product that makes it work in this consumer context. And it's been a learning curve because our entire team was B2B. I mean, we have an amazing healthcare team, and we've had a huge learning curve in terms of direct to consumer. And one thing I will say as a founder is, one of the things that's great about being a founder is you get to have learning curves at a time in your life where you don't have a lot of learning curves. Like, I feel like I have very little opportunity to like learn and do new things. Like, you become an expert in something, you keep doing it. And doing this massive pivot to direct to consumer was so, like, besides the fact that business is working, it was so personally gratifying to have an opportunity to learn a completely new market motion that I hadn't done before. And so I'm really grateful, just as an aside, for that, which founders don't often get, I think.
Yeah, I really love it. A little bit background, in Seattle, every single VC I talked to basically said, we don't buy B2C. Seattle, yes. Bay Area is different culture. So, but I still see a lot of B2C founders. It's just like passion. It's like, this is the exact group of people I want to serve. So brave, really nice story. I love it. Pretty young.
How to talk about it.
How to really fit, yes.
Probably just a little bit of rewind. The day I had work authorization, I promoted people on my team and quit my job at Microsoft, thinking that this is the problem I want to solve. I spent over a month talking to over 80 lawyers on like, hey, I know exactly the kind of technology that you could really use to transform this business, but also give a very compelling experience to every HR team you work with or every immigrant you work with, because employment-based immigration, for context if you've never gone through this, is hyper-personalized, but also something that can get really technical. So for certain visa types, you have to explain to the government, why is this person extraordinary? And you spend a lot of time understanding their domain so that you can explain to the government why they're essential for this economy. And a lot of times I noticed that my own attorney spent, what is foundation model? Like, why are you building it? Why does the country need it? And so spend a month trying to just hear from people and lawyers how they wanted to solve this, and walked away feeling very confused, like, yes, you want to get better, but you don't want to pay, and at the same time, you wanted to get only marginally better, like, what's going on here? And immediately realized after that first month that if I want to transform how people experience immigration as a service completely, I have to take charge. And I have no legal background, but I'm a researcher, which meant I studied immigration day in and out. I found some of the top attorneys who work for me now, but this was this whole journey of getting away from the comfort zone of I know how to build scalable technology to I want to change this industry, and then bringing all of these experts by my side. So even though we're AI native, it's human AI collaboration in the end of the day. Immigration and HR by nature is very human. And so that was like a lot of identity questioning that happened in between, which is always an AI researcher, the person who always spoke and wrote and talked about it, versus now I'm thinking nothing on the website speaks AI. It all speaks about what the outcome is. And having that conversation completely in a different tone, it's all about believing in what is it that a top team needs, like what is it that a founder needs. And that was quite the journey in finding where we fit in this whole puzzle. And even though it was expedited just by my sheer hunger to talk to people, it was still a really long mental journey to switch through from a technology platform to a full stack solution. And when we announced ourselves in November, we had over 250 people just show up within 24 hours wanting to get help. And that's how I knew that I had to listen more to what people actually wanted versus someone in between who's transitioning that services. And that was sort of the call for us to ramp up and start running, but it was quite the journey. It just figured this piece out in 2 weeks.
Congratulations for the first 2500.
So Yinhan, to answer your question about achieving product market fit, I think it's one of those things that even when you have it, you should keep on chasing for more. In the context of, like B2B SaaS is not, that's what we do, by the way, and B2B SaaS isn't supposed to be easy. And in the world of business, I think the only constant over time is change. So I'm gonna answer this question on how important it is to reach that super well and really win in a market in the context of where we are in time right now with generative AI and the urgency around AI agents. I remember I attended a session, I think it was hosted by you or someone else at AI2 a couple of months ago with Vinod Khosla, who was saying something about, most of the companies in AI for the past couple of years have been, initially the hyperscalers and then infrastructure dev tool companies, but the real economic opportunity is in application layer companies, just how in the previous generation of software with SaaS, you had the decade, category defining companies like Uber, DoorDash, and so on. And he was saying, this really stuck with me because we are an AI application company, that the window of opportunity to start a company in this space is started in 2022 with the launch of ChatGPT and everyone, paying a lot more attention to AI solutions, and it's gonna stay open until 2027. So we're in it right now. To reach product market fit in such times, and I think history shows us this over and over again when it comes to paradigm shift technologies, there's a lot of moat that you can have, moats through technology, moats through data, moats through the business model is super important as well, I would say, for those in B2B SaaS in particular. But at the end of the day, whoever runs the fastest in these times of change is the one who wins in the long run. So I think if you're a founder in AI, I think that there's a huge market pressure to win more, to grow faster. I was catching up recently with an operating partner who was telling me that some of the portfolio companies they work with, they're in the office, they work 9 to 6 p.m. at least in the office, and it shifted from 5 days a week to 6 days a week. So people feel, especially when it comes to software, where the barrier of entry is essentially none, people feel huge urgency and pressure to win more, and that's the kind of the speed and urgency that I pass on to my team as well. While also being mindful, that as a founder, I want my team to have as much as possible a work-life balance as well. I want to have that kind of culture for our employees, but also in the context of understanding the overall market urgency and pressure for AI businesses and the realities of this point in time. I think you also had a question about acquiring customers and what customers are the hardest ones to acquire. And my answer to that is it's always the next stage of growth customer that you need to win for your business. So you may think that the first customers are the hardest ones to acquire. And I still remember I was actually chatting with my co-founder about this the other day. I remember when we onboarded our very first customer, and they were about to sign, the contract was out for procurement and for review and so on. We had been through the entire enterprise sales cycle. And then they asked me, could I speak to a couple of your references? Could I speak to a couple of other customers who are using Cascade? And I said, sure, let me get back to you on that. In reality, at the time, they were our first customer, right? So I had to figure out who am I connecting with now. So you have to start somewhere. And one lesson that I learned scaling a business is that, and I learned this pretty quickly, whoever you sell to, they're always going to ask you, can I speak to customers of similar size? So if you want to get to the Fortune 100 organizations, you need to start at the lowest size customers possible that's still viable for your business model. in our case, we sell enterprise, so like selling HR agents for companies that have like 10, 20, 50 employees. That doesn't make sense. There's no, I think that the need for a product like ours that drives operational efficiencies and the value to an organization really is where companies are bigger. So at the entry point for us, our smallest customers have around 500 employees. But I understood pretty quickly that we need to sell to those first, and then to win the 1,000 employees, and then 10,000 employees, and 50,000, and 90,000, and you keep going from there. But this never stops, and I think thinking that like one day you'll be product market fit like checked and everything is done. Like it always continues. And the reason why I was joking with my co-founder recently about this is because we were onboarding a very large customer, and they were asking us to speak to other similar size organizations, and we connected them with live companies. But then we realized, okay, like over and over again, you always need to have to build those relationships. And I think there's a lesson in the importance of customer references here as well. So my advice to others who are starting a business is understand, people talk in the founder world a lot about founder-led sales. I think there's a lot of importance in having founder-led customer success as well, and in building very strong relationships with your existing customers, because they will be the biggest advocates for your brand and for your organization, and you will need them to acquire other customers over time, and you can't go back to the same 1-2 people over and over again. So you need to keep thinking about that as you're continuing to scale the business. And the last lesson, I promise I'll pass it on to others after this, on customer acquisition. For those in the AI world and selling AI services, there's what's happening now is that it's a completely new territory. So the sales cycles themselves are being remapped. People talk a lot about AI and autonomous go-to-market frameworks, but there's also like a different sales process that's unfolding. So when we were onboarding our very first large organization, we got the proposal approved, we went through procurement, and then we had to go through something called AI governance review, which people talk a lot about now. Like large organizations have AI committees, AI governance board, and so on. Their legal team was saying, we need to get you guys through the AI governance process. The challenge is we don't have an AI governance process yet. So when you sell something that's truly category changing and you're defining a category, I think you need to be prepared for charting the territory. And I think that's an exciting thing, because you get to have some authority in the process and shape that process alongside with your company growth. But it's just something that you need to be prepared for.
Thank you so much. At least I learned something from your story. Yeah, I agree. There's the market keep changing, so there is no perfect market. Product market fit. There's always choosing. We have to keep choosing for the product market fit, and also speed definitely is one thing, because even OpenAI doesn't have a moat. So speed is the only moat we can build so far. Thank you. Yeah. Susanna?
So speaking about product marketing fit, okay, thank you, Flipboom. Actually, they are our very earlier users, and we're very happy when we heard that you guys find someone from our platforms. I always say that, so as a founder, you are the sales for your company, you're the first sales for your company. You have to sell by yourself for the first group of customers. And the focus is important because when you talk with customers, it is always, they give you a lot of ideas, a lot of requests. And then you're gonna question, should I feed their expectations? Should I change my product? So I always tell my team that if we are not that stage, maybe let's just focus on who we are serving right now, and to the next stage, and then we can maybe shape a little bit based on the customer group we are targeting for. And then right now we are free. We don't know request anyone to pay, which I think is harder. Compare you selling to someone, they need to pay. Because when you're free, people will think about, okay, I don't need to pay any efforts, why I have to use it? Then we won't pay too much attention on that. So then you have to pay more attention, efforts to let them buy in your product and then using it, give you the feedback. So I think that's harder. I was also questioning in the middle that people suggest me just start charging. I'm like, I think I still need to know what my customer really needed, and I'm confident to that stage, I will do it. But until that, I think I'm willing, and my team willing to try harder to find out what the not like perfect market fit. Yeah, so that's I think from our perspective that it's a little bit different than maybe some others people's sharing. Yeah.
Thank you.
That's us? Okay, good. 3 things I want to share. For me, the findings have been about being obsessed with your customer, right? And I talk to a lot of founders, like, I have this really cool thing, and I am going to now start off with customers, right? And I think the thing we underestimate is how much your soft skills really make a difference as a founder, and how you actually work with people around you and understand what do these people really care about. And I have the best job in the world because I get to work with coaches all day long, and they're incredible humans. Very, very lucky. But that's what we started to do from the very beginning, is talk to as many coaches as possible to understand their pain points. I'm also lucky because I have coaches in my vicinity. I've done some coaching with them. So that's the one thing, is like, get really obsessed with humans. And at first I was like, well, I'm going to send a form because that's, that's quicker. Do forms, I'll get information. But really nothing substitute, especially in the beginning, doing things that don't scale. My quote, obviously, like, have those one-on-one calls. Systematize being personal with people and getting their feedback, especially when you start, so you can understand, are you on the right direction? Are you serving the right thing? The second thing I think you mentioned is the difference between medicine and vitamins, right? People can look at us, that's actually what we're facing right now, is like we're getting hyper-focused. We went from like B2C, this idea, now we're going to coaching, and now our focus is a very specific kind of coach. Because we understand that there's a rate with which you're growing your technology, and there's a rate where you can build something that's really a medicine to your audience, right? Like, you have to go, it's like, here's my runway, how can I create something of real value fast enough that people would actually be obsessed with that? So that's what the thing where I think people can look and say, well, this is nice, I'll test it out on February, or they say, oh my gosh, this is something I really need right now. And you want to keep that people, like a small group of people where it's really a medicine. I think like a lot of startups would do example, they focus on one use case where they really understood the customer, really solved their pain point, and that was the thing. And the last thing I want to mention, again, preaching to the choir about like, the human touch. If we talk about all this tech stuff, but nothing really compares. Like, you have to be human. And I think people underestimate the amount of like, you look at the other human on the call and you show up as a human being. It's like, hey, I care about you and I care what you're doing, right? Or what do you care about? What's important to you? Like, I think that people think that it's all about being the smartest person or having the best tech, but I think that we underestimate how much the person liking you is going to close the deal, right? So I think it's important to also be human and then trusting that side and not hiding that we're robots and we're the smartest people and we don't have kids and we don't have lives. Like, you're also a human and bring that experience to be a strength to you versus a deterrent.
Thank you. So next time come to our happy hours, then you get to know more human, then get more deals done. Yeah, email doesn't work sometimes. Has to be face to face.
Okay, about the market fit, I believe we found the market fit before we started to build the business. I was the board member of a rehab equipment startup technology company in Maryland. So the equipment was to do rehab training for stroke patients. The purpose is to put back or to restore as much as mobility back to them so that they won't be a black hole for any insurance companies to carry out lifelong expenditure. So, and the founder of that business, the scientists, made a suggestion to the board that all the knowledge of keeping people's muscle, bone, physically strong, try to prevent chronic conditions, all the research are there, but there's nothing to deliver it to people that people can start early to have prevention. So they suggest we need a software to deliver it to the healthy people who's not actually very healthy. It's not like, it's just not, they're not sick enough that the doctors will pay attention to them, that our society will have resources for them. But we have to start it early. And by talking about this, I can tell you guys a scary message is that according to the research 2 years ago, the foundation of Medicare will run out of money in 2032. when I tell the story to my friend, they start to count their age and see whether they can still have that benefit when they're eligible to Medicare. But the most scary story is that according to this administration's calculation, it won't even last to 2032. So the only idea for this system is to have prevention, is to not only to our own benefits, but also for the whole system, is that to create less and less patients so that we'll spend that long. So I think that value and that market needs is definitely there. So that's why we decided to build something that all individuals can start to have prevention as early as possible, so that they don't have to take pills for high blood pressure, diabetes, lifelong. So that, and they don't have to have weak knees, weak ankles, lower back pains, and replacement of joints. So those are all the purpose. But at the same time, even though the academic world, the healthcare payers, they all believe this is a market need, but many of the time we see our end users, they don't admit it's their needs. They think, hey, I have YouTubers, I have my yoga class teachers, right? But what the real difference is that, you know, the scientific research already shows that we are so different. If we want to fight chronic conditions, if we want to have strong body to fight declines, we have hundreds of thousands of differences and data we need to consider, and YouTubers will not tell you. And you cannot learn from YouTubers. They only give you one instruction and you believe that's the best thing for you. So our product, for every of you, we see you different in 570 different ways to minimize your risk, to keep your body, or exercise, as we say, holistic health. For example, you may go to Pilates classes, but you still have a missed landing on the stairs because these two tiny muscle groups are not exercised, not strong enough. But we have an AI algorithm. They always remember the muscle groups. Each muscle group needs to be primarily exercised in a week so that you always have the right pose. A wrong pose may end up heavier load on one side of the body, but weaker muscles on the other side. You may end up injuries. You may end up a very bad hip. So everything, if we can have that support by an AI expert at your home, then your life can be, you don't need to be an expert yourself. You just wait the AI expert to tell you what to do, but our ultimate goal is to fight with the aging, the global aging burden, because it's too, I think, though I'm international, but I remember Americans' data, you know. So in United States, I think Medicare has 31% of the budget, of the whole federal budget. So that means if that budget can be lower, the burden will be much, much lower.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So let's talk about the toughest thing. I think for me it was the toughest thing in my journey, which is fundraising. That's a game of so many no's and then one yes. And then the thing I pitch basically my company, my team, which is my product, which is my baby, right? And then 30 minutes or even 20 minutes, then it was a no. They didn't even understand my baby and said your baby is so ugly. So by the way, I'm not a mom. I just feel it that way. So fundraising has been the hardest thing, especially for me emotionally. It's the hardest thing. So you want to share your fundraising story?
Yes, fundraising is really hard. I think it's even harder when you're a female CEO. I think you've got some decks stacked against you. My advice there is if you can get non-dilutive grants, SBIR grants, especially in any sort of technology space, that is time well invested with a good consultant who has gotten these grants before and knows what to do. Really augmenting venture funding with non-dilutive grants is absolutely huge, and it has saved us. I think particularly now, I was at the Wilson Sonsini conference a month or two ago, and the opening plenary was from someone from HSBC. The first thing he says is seed and Series A is off the table right now. It's a very, very tough fundraising environment. There are very big rounds going to very few companies, and not a lot of small rounds going to lots of companies, which is what you typically see in the fundraising space. So it's an unusual time. It's particularly hard. Anything you can do to avoid it, grants are pretty amazing. And really the thing about grants, like people ask me about them, you need a good consultant. Like I had a friend who submitted a grant and she was like automatically disqualified because her line spacing was wrong. And so, I mean, you need a good consultant who's done this and has gotten them. But they are there and they are fundable. And even in this administration, the SBIRs are flowing and they're actually talking about re-emphasizing and emphasizing SBIRs even more in the administration. We'll see what actually happens. But, you know, that's my plug for non-dilutive and finding the right folks to help you with that.
Thank you for
Sorry,
the
that didn't
tips.
answer your question.
No, that's my tips.
That's part of your question.
Yeah, Priyanka.
I don't talk a lot about my seed round yet, but I have a bunch of fun, interesting things that I can definitely share. It's definitely hard putting yourself out there and consistently putting your best energy every day to pitch, to share your product, your vision, and also doing your day job and firefighting at the same time. Like the switch that I was talking about is so real and it amplifies at the time of fundraising. It's also because you don't want to let your customers down. You don't want to tell them, sorry, I'm fundraising today, or I've got investor meetings. And so it's really interesting on how your brain plays through these two modes of macro and micro. Something I would definitely recommend, and I got a lot of benefit out of it, was just really running a tight process, is what they say. So giving yourself a certain number of weeks and making sure when you start, even before you start the process, you know exactly the people you want to talk to. So there are two ways people try this. One is what I just learned called spray and pray, which is like try to reach you hundreds and thousands and hope something sticks. Or something that worked really well was just focusing on warm intros to the process and making the most out of it, is trying to convert those into a lot of yeses. And that really also helped emotionally because you know you're not walking into a room facing someone who doesn't care about the problem. The fact that they took the intro just means a little bit extra, that this is not just another deal on their table. I think that type process also allows to create a little bit of competition, right? There's this whole element of FOMO that goes through. Once one call moves from one stage to another, there's others that also want to catch up and not miss out. And being able to create that momentum really works well. Again, it's not easy, but the more you plan and orchestrate around it, the more helpful it can get. And lastly, all you need is one yes.
Yeah.
You could totally get multiple, and it's always awesome, like choosing between two. I had the opportunity to say no to an investor, and for 1 week of my life, I felt like the richest person. And you should savor it. But all jokes aside, I think all you need is one set of people who really believe in you and the vision, and that's all that matters. And so the shorter, the well-planned, orchestrated the process is, the faster you'll get to all of the yeses and the nos. And at the end of it coming out, there's money in the bank, you're done with those. But be prepared for all of the stress and the trauma, the highs and the lows. My calendar was color-coded in all rainbows on like how to decide who to talk to, when to talk to. But the only thing that's going to help is just like really orchestrating things through the journey. It's not easy, but if anyone wants to talk and learn, I'm happy to share that.
Thank you. Feel free to grab her after this.
On this topic, I've been pretty lucky, to be honest. Like I feel the privilege of my network, of what we've built over time, and so on. When we had our first big fundraise, like I first reached out to a couple of friends, asking them, you know, who have been through the process, asking them like how to prepare and so on. And of course, like, be very prepared, have a plan, have a list of people you want to talk to, have like a timeline mapped out and so on. There's a lot of practical advice that I'm happy to connect with offline and one-on-one as well. we reached out to a couple of investors telling them that we were getting ready for a fundraise, but like not actually, and that signals to investors that you're about to open a round. And when we actually opened the round and started having conversations, things went pretty well for us, even though the market was already down. I think it spoke to the traction we were having. It spoke to the fact that we didn't rush into the fundraising process. We had a lot of progress already to show. We received a term sheet to raise more than $1 million initially, from 1 to 1.7. To this date, I've raised a total of $5.4 million. Our seed round, which closed in the fall of last year, was led by Gradient. They're Google's early stage fund. They're phenomenal. I absolutely love to partnering with them. Happy to connect offline and to give any fundraising advice, because I know there's a lot of very difficult stories out there, and I've been fortunate enough to go through processes that were fairly smooth, even though the market was in a crunch time. I do want to advise the crowd on be very mindful of when you raise and why you raise. I remember when I first called my friends who were founders and telling them, we need to scale, we have all this demand, it's too much work for just me and my co-founder who had been bootstrapping until that time. And they asked me, why do you want to raise venture money? And on the spot, I thought it's a strange question. I'm like, well, it's a no-brainer. When you start a company, and everyone I know is going through that process. They said, no, you need to understand the venture model before you get into that. And I think many people jump into the process without understanding what it actually means, and think that fundraising your next round, of course it's a sign that a business is growing, but in the age of AI, there's this new trend called seed strapping, in which AI companies that are profitable, that have incredible revenue per head count, just don't need additional capital. And as a founder who's scaling an AI first company, I understand that process very well now. But I think it's very common for founders to seek venture funding rounds as a stamp of approval. And if you're doing it for those reasons, then you shouldn't do it. I think if you are seeking product market fit, you need customers to validate product market fit. You don't need money. If you need money to just scale the customer base, you ran a couple of experiments, you're seeing good results, you need more people to run some of those experiments at scale, then of course that makes sense. But otherwise, be very careful, because given the seed and Series A landscape, you want to make sure that when you sign a term sheet with an investor, it's on the right terms as well. So that can only happen if you have a business with very strong business fundamentals. So I think people should prioritize for that, as opposed to chasing money for just the glory of it.
Thank you.
Yes, I really agree with what you said. Actually, for my first startup companies, I raised my first seed round after 6 months later, and already have the product out. People already have a base of users, and then actually the investor find us, said I don't know what you are doing, but seems awesome. I want to give you guys money. I'm like, yeah, sure, we can talk about that. But what I want to say is, a lot of times investors, they are good or bad. We have to make our own judgment. I always suggest that you have to identify the time. It's the time to find monies. And I always find the resources investor, not just the money. I will turn to that stage, think about what my company needs in the resources wise, and looking for specific investors. I think they're gonna help our company not only on the money side, also on the resource, and also that bring the value to the investor as well. So that's I think I'm lucky as well. I got the 2 company fundraising kind of smoothly, and then my current company, we got private equity investment, but the relationship I built it a couple years before from my first companies. I will say that you never know who you're gonna meet in every event or networking. You don't know what their backgrounds are, so be nice to everyone, and they might be your investors. Yeah.
Thank you.
Test. Okay. We are still wrapping up our pre-seed round, and a couple of things that we haven't mentioned, a lot of really amazing things, is again, I'm talking about the human connection. I think people, it's easy to, especially in Seattle, go around and meet all the VCs in 3 events, and I pretty much know most of the people in the room. And if they don't like your idea right now, you're like, well, I should quit at this moment, right? But then they're like, well, what do we do then? I think what I've learned is you find your unique advantage, right? For example, like we're in coaching and some of our investors are coaching, clients, executive coaching clients, or they have done coaching. Like, don't go to the audience that doesn't like cheese and you're selling them cheese. Find cheese connoisseurs and think, hey, I have the best cheese for you, right? So in the audience, like, don't go to the masses and like kind of get like people say the numbers game, but I think you should humanize the numbers game. Find people who actually understand the value you bring, and then cultivate that relationship. Tell them, hey, I'm gonna do this, or ask them advice. Like, you always ask for advice. Like, hey, I'm doing this. Can you give me your advice? You keep them posted on what you're doing. Another thing really well said, actually, Bob Crimmins from Startup Payment recommended we were going to raise like a larger amount, probably by half. He's like, well, why do you really need that larger amount right now? Like, especially as a first-time fundraiser, you don't really even know it's going to be 12 months from now, I guess you're where you are. Can you really, how far out can you see, and what's the game plan you need, and how much money do you need for that? So one really helpful thing to actually get us in gear is like, you don't question how much do you really need, especially to Anna's point about being an AI startup. Like, there's separation between ego and like what you really, really need. And the other thing is like, you have to think about delusion, right? You can get all this money, but that means that your ownership stake goes down. So every step of the way, initially we sort of, how much money do you really need? And I know there's reality of mortgages and family and all this stuff, right? But then there's like, how much can you survive to get here? And what are you gonna get when you get to that money? In the same way as when you raise for the next fund, even as you're raising for the first one, you're thinking, well, what is this money gonna get me to? And then how will I use this money to get to the next round? And then, so those are things. There's like finding people who are giving you a unique advantage because they know your product and they like it. There's also unique things. So we did a pre-accelerator in Kentucky, virtually, random, very random. But because of that, they have Kentucky Commonwealth has a matching program where they match your first 25K, 300K, and 2.5 million. It's rarely random because I have a presence in Kentucky, I have hires in Kentucky because of that pre-accelerator, there's unique opportunities. So my point is not that you move to Kentucky, but like find what makes you unique and your unique advantage about you, and then exploit in the kindest way those opportunities.
Thank you.
Yes, for this question, I would say fundraising is hard. It is also true for VC because they also need to raise funds from their LPs. So they have the same feeling. And also their LPs tells them their baby's ugly. So I have an experience that that's why as a startup founder, I try not to have too optimistic expectation talking to VCs, because people, even the person looking at your product and they like it very much, they still have a long way to go to find the final decision in their organization. That's not easy. So many partners will have different ideas. They may have no time to listen to your recommendations. And my experience is that when I was doing investment, I believe that a fintech company will have great potential. It carries all kinds of values, and it's not risky. It's already been around. And I talked to so many of my partners, and they're so skeptical because it's not a common process that they are solving that problem, because I used to work in an investment banking firm, so I know how this will increase the efficiency. So as for me, I had to convince them over 6 months. I went to their home, talked to them, and bring them to, I'm actually sitting at the startup side, right? It's not easy for an investment to get all approval, even from a VC internal process. That's not easy. So sometimes if you find someone who likes to very much be with them, work with them so that they will get the right term for you. And that's why I think doing VC is same as founding a startup.
Thank you so much. I think time is up here. Feel free to hang around, and then don't forget to register on SeattleFemaleFounders.org, and then feel free to grab people here and then talk to them. Thank you for coming. Thank you.